Hey listeners, I'm here with Bob Letta from All Alaska Outdoors. Bob, how long has All Alaska been operating for?
We hit the quarter century mark last year, and we're ready to kick off the second quarter century here in 2021.
Awesome. And where's All Alaska located?
All Alaska Outdoors is on the Kenai Peninsula. We're just outside the town of Soldotna. We're on a beautiful floatplain lake, about a 2.5-hour drive from Anchorage.
Awesome. I love it. And what can guests expect when they come to book a trip with All Alaska Outdoors?
Well, typically a guest would fly into Anchorage, rent a vehicle, drive to our lodge. They would have private suite accommodations. They would have a full kitchen, private living area, bathroom, high-speed wireless internet. Our packages include all of their fish processed, ready to go, airline ready package to fly home. And they would select from a very wide variety of activities to do, customize their own week, local river fishing, saltwater fishing at 3 different locations, and array of flyouts that exceeds anything anybody on the Kenai Peninsula offers.
And what type of species of fish can guests expect to target with All Alaska Outdoors?
The local rivers offer all 5 species of salmon: king salmon, silver salmon, sockeye salmon, humpback salmon, and chum salmon. The flyouts allow for fishing for grayling, giant northern pike, lake trout, rainbows, dolly varden. There's good local fishing for dolly varden and rainbows as well. And then the saltwater, we've got halibut, sea bass, lingcod, salmon are out there. We're catching kings, silvers, and humpies pretty regularly in the salt.
What can guests expect? Tell us what makes All Alaska unique and special.
I think it's our versatility. We just offer so many different things. We've got a really deep tool bag. We customize and try to meet the guest needs analysis for what is their perfect week. We can adjust packages to meet their budget. And I just think it's an amazing opportunity to have a reasonably priced package where you can put together local trips that are on the road system and flyouts and just do something different every day.
And where can we find All Alaska Outdoors?
You can see us on the web at allalaska.com. You can call us at 907-953-0186. And we have a nice Instagram page and a Facebook page where we cover a lot of what's going on.
Perfect. You've heard it here with Bob from All Alaska Outdoors. Hey, Fly Fishing Insiders, what's up? We are here with Justin and Stanton from Togans. They are our show sponsor. Hey, Justin, what's going on for Togans this year? What's new and what's coming down the pipe for us tires?
This year we got a whole new range of dubbing coming out, along with our shadow dubbing, most popular, as well as our prism dubbing. The shadow dubbing is a nice multicolored dubbing, where the prism is a bit more of a reflective type of dubbing.
Stanton, as part of Togans Pro Team Tire, what do you enjoy most about both these dubbings?
With the shadow dubbing, I love the blend, and I love how soft it is. It ties beautifully for leech and damsel patterns, having the 2 different shades of natural olive colors. And the prism dubbing is fantastic for Euro nymphs, or if you want to put hot spots, like have your nymphs or your leeches really pop, you add in some of that prism dubbing because it really jumps out.
Perfect. And Justin, where can we find these dubbings?
Both of these dubbings are available now on our website at togansflyshop.com. You can find them under the dubbings collection.
Excellent. All right, guys, let's get back to the show. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Keenan. This is Season 3 of the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. In this episode, we aim to bring you the biggest and best stories from those who work and make our fly fishing industry truly great. The Fly Fishing Insider Podcast dives deep into the past, present, and future of all our guests, uncovering their amazing stories and journey. Join us each week as we interview a new podcast guest. Also, if you're new to the show or not yet a subscriber, make sure you hit subscribe after this episode. Welcome to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. Today, our guest, Dave Hartlin. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg. How are you, buddy? Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Good. Yeah. So I guess, I'm fully transparent here. I mean, we were talking for about 28 minutes. Really good conversation before this aired. And I just feel like I should have hit record on all that great stuff we were talking, because you have a lot going on, man. And we're going to talk about all that today. So a lot of it's Atlantic Salmon focused, and plus your newest ventures and everything that you kind of are up to, plus your guiding company as well. So, but before we get into all that, one of the things that you mentioned to me was that you are a junkie. And what I mean by that is you are an Atlantic salmon junkie. So tell everybody that doesn't know about your passion for Atlantic salmon and how you got into it and what made you become a full-on junkie.
Well, Greg, over the years I guided a lot of what people consider trout bums, and these guys are, no disrespect to them, but they are severe, dedicated anglers. But they, they get up in the morning and let's go fishing and stuff, and they're dedicated. But myself, at 8 years old, I hooked my first Atlantic salmon, and I still remember how my knees were shaking so bad when I hooked that first fish. And ever since then, man, it's, I've never done any hard drugs, but like from what I've watched on TV, hooking that first Atlantic salmon was just like jabbing a needle in my arm, right? And there's been no turning back. Like, I have to do it. Like, when I wake up in the morning, I think about it usually. Like, and I do, like I was saying to you, I do a lot of, big game guiding, and I've done waterfowl guiding and all that stuff. But salmon is definitely, without question, where my passion is. And salmon anglers, especially Atlantic salmon anglers, they are referred to as salmon junkies. And we certainly live up to that reputation, because we will beg, borrow, steal, or do whatever we got to do to go fishing. So
hilarious.
That's pretty much my definition of the junkie side of Atlantic salmon, anyway.
So what is it about? Because these fish are, I live on the West Coast, and maybe I take salmon for granted, and we have all 5 species of salmon, and when it's salmon season here, you can always definitely tell from the rivers and the drones of cars parked along the riverbanks, all that sort of stuff. So, but what is it about Atlantic salmon? Because as a Westerner, I sit there and I look at Atlantic salmon, and they're like a mysterious or like prized salmon, and I haven't caught one on a fly rod. I have caught one on gear. But man, yet. Exactly. We got to get those borders open, but I want to, I just want to know, what is it that's so mysterious about it? Why is it such a highly regarded and prized fish within the world?
Well, I think a lot of it, Greg, dates back to, the yesteryears of back in Scotland, and how it was like, it was for the rich and the famous back then. Like, over in Scotland, you don't have a whole lot of public water, if any, on some of these rivers. So, like, if you don't own a big tract of land and that piece of water, or that beat, as they call it in Europe, you're not fishing. And if you own that and people want to fish it, it generally costs you quite a bit of money. Like, over there, you'll get your gillies or your guides. Sometimes they'll lease a beat of land from somebody that maybe doesn't even fish, but they own the land, and that's just part of how their family makes their business, just off of leasing water rights. And so I guess, dating back that far, is kind of where it all would have started, with the forbidden fruit for the peasants, so to speak. So, and then moving to now, over time, like, that would evolve, and more local people would have been fishing and stuff. But here, especially, but now, especially, the big thing is the availability. Atlantic salmon used to run the whole eastern seaboard of the United States, right through to, up to Ungava Bay. Like, every river used to pretty much have salmon at one point. And now a lot of those rivers, due to, climate change or, different things have affected it. And we don't really know what's actually depleting the stocks worldwide, but we do know that they are depleting. And that kind of anybody that wants to fish them, now's the time. You should definitely do it within the next 10, 15 years, because these rivers are eventually going to probably be closed, unfortunately, or a good portion of them, and then you're going to be going that much further north and that much more less availability for water to fish. So I guess that kind of makes it kind of mysterious too, because not everybody, people on the west coast of Canada or Midwest United States, like, it's a 2-day trip to get to Newfoundland or Labrador. And, for you guys on the west coast, it's so much easier for you to jump on a plane and fly up to Alaska, which I totally get. But everybody on the west coast has done that, so to speak. So
I agree. Yeah.
Taking the time to come out east, or you know what I mean? It would pay off. You would be very impressed with the quality of the fishery that is still available. It's all public water. There's no private water in Newfoundland or Labrador or Nova Scotia, for that matter. So pretty much you can fish wherever you like, as long as you have your guide. In Newfoundland and Labrador, there is a guide restriction. You must have a guide, and it's 2-on-1 for a maximum. So there's some restrictions there, which again kind of make it that a little bit harder to do. So therefore, a little bit more mysterious, and another step to the puzzle to getting there and doing it. But it's for anybody that's done it that I've had in that are major steelheaders from the East Coast or West Coast. Sorry, they've always been quite impressed with the fishery as one. But Atlantic salmon, it's called the leaper for a reason. You can hook all the cohos or kings or whatever you want, man, but you're not getting 5 to 15 jumps out of a fish. Imagine hooking a 15-pound chrome bumper.
I'm picturing it.
56, just like the chrome bumper on a 56 Buick, and you just come up, hook that dry fly, like pinnacle perfect, and now all of a sudden you stick that hook in his lip, and he just goes aerobatic, man, like the cartwheels and tail walks, and it's like nothing else. And again, that's what makes us junkies. We're always chasing that fish, right?
Yeah, I hear you. It's kind of funny that you mentioned the dry fly, because I noticed that I was just going to ask you that. With Atlantic salmon, the flies, compared to Pacific salmon or West Coast salmon, we do a lot of, a completely different style. And not a lot of guys are fishing dries. And, you guys are fishing dries out there. The flies are quite different out there as well. And the patterns are different. I don't know if it's just me or if it's that mystique about it, because when I think Atlantic salmon, I think those traditional spay fly patterns. I guess maybe a lot of it might be due to my friend Ryan Taylor as well, who's always developing those classic patterns. And guys like yourself, Dave, does that kind of go hand in hand with that fishery, or do they take more newer patterns?
It depends. Honestly, the biggest thing on patterns depends on the time of year and temperature of water.
Okay, yeah, it's like any other fishery.
Yeah, 100%. You don't want to be. I won't say intruders and stuff don't work for Atlantic salmon, but it certainly wouldn't even be on my top 20 of flies to fish in the summertime.
That's where I'm kind of going with it. Just completely. It is different then. Yeah.
And small, I'll be fishing to put it in perspective, like a Tiemco 7999 hook, black iron hook. Most of them that we would be using would be 8s and 10s, small flies in the summer, especially latter part of June, first part of July, and stuff like that. And those would be predominantly wet fly times, is pretty much because of the water temperature. But then once the water temperature starts coming up, around, I'll say around 58, 59 degrees or something like that, the fish are starting to get a little more active. They're less lethargic. They're coming in over that cold ocean water. I mean, North Atlantic's still pretty cold the first part of July, but I tell you won't catch me swimming in it. So, they come in over that cold water, and they got a condition anyway for the journey into the fresh water. So it takes them a little bit of time, but when that water's warming up, that's when they start getting a lot more active in terms of the dry flies. Or we do another thing here on the East Coast, and I know it's known and been adapted into the West Coast fishery, but hitching a fly, and we call it the actual name originally started was the Portland Hitch. That's how it got started. And just to touch on that briefly,
let's do it.
Yeah, back in the old days when the merchant mariners used to come over to Newfoundland trading with England and stuff, they would come over, and these guys would have all these old classic flies. Like when you think about that Atlantic salmon fly, you're thinking like that big classic Jock Scott or Greenhounder with the catgut eye and stuff like that.
Yes.
And that's what they brought over, and that's what the local people in Newfoundland, particularly on the Northern Peninsula, particularly on a river called Portland Creek, what would happen over time, these people didn't have all these fancy feathers. We lived in Canada. Jungle cock, they didn't even know what it was. So the catgut eyes would eventually get rotten and they would break. And they had no way to fix them or tie new flies. So, being intuitive, they would just tie half hitches behind the head of the fly, cinch down on the material, and they would fish the fly, which would cause the head of the fly to stick out of the water and skate across the surface, which would result in some very explosive takes. But it was the only way that they could fish because it had no eye left. So over time, once iron hooks came out, this method of catching Atlantic salmon was very prevalent in the culture. So people still today, we just tie a half hitch behind the head of the fly. If you're fishing over smooth, nice glassy water that has a nice current, you can get that sea. Wow. Hold on to the cork, Greg. Hold on to the cork.
You like to see backing, don't you? Yeah, that's awesome.
I like to see the end of the reel, but that's what I want to see. I want to see the end of the reel.
There you are. That's awesome. So, Dave, one of the things you did mention, though, that still kind of sticks with me earlier in the podcast was, there's about 10 to 15 years of, before this fishery has, faces some devastation or some severity or dries up or it's, as you said, no longer. What are the threats? What's going on, man? What can we do to stop it? What are the threats? Why do you say something like that?
Well, when I say that I didn't say that it would be. I said that there's potential for that.
That's right. Sorry. You're right. Yeah.
Right now, particularly in Nova Scotia and the south coast of Newfoundland, they're doing a study, and I don't want to get into the particulars about the study or the way that it's being done, but SARA, the species at risk and stuff, there's a few rivers in the eastern side of Cape Breton Island and the south coast of Newfoundland that are potentially going to go on that list. And once anything goes on that list, one of the conditions of SARA is that species can no longer be pursued or harassed. So the fishery's closed. You can't fish that river no more. Mm-hmm. If those salmon are protected, you can't fish that river no more. So what happens then, unfortunately, in a lot of these small rural places, when you take the fishermen off the river, you take the eyes off the river. Mm-hmm. And that's when things that shouldn't happen start happening. So,
yeah.
So
I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah.
So you take it away from the fishermen, but then it doesn't do the fish any good. Generally, is the problem. The fish don't seem to benefit. So that's been our experiences in the past. Yeah,
I know where you're going with it because I know on the West Coast we face we face a loss of fishery potentially up in the terrace area as well. You know, I was up there in October of this year, and it was devastating, kind of what we saw and what happened. And I don't want to get into it as well either, because, you know, people have their way of fishing and their ancestral rights and all that sort of stuff. But I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's a devastation of a fishery, and then for sport fishermen. So I'll leave it at that as well. So yeah, just, you know, it's always good to figure out what's, you know what I mean, what's going on. So what are some things, I mean, like currently right now, obviously, you know, protecting fish and making sure fish are, you know, well handled, and ethical fishing practices are ways that we can do things to minimize, you know, risk and prevent, you know, these things from happening as well. So, I mean, do you see that, like, ethically when you're guiding, like, out on the river? Is there any, you know, where I'm trying to go, you know what I'm trying to say?
I see a lot of mishandled fish, but it's not mishandled because they're being vindictive or anything like that. I think it's mostly just because there's a severe lack of education or you know, programs to help people, like you know, like there's not a lot of fishing clubs or anything like that to help promote and educate people and bring them along, and, like, you know, bringing a fish in and taking a picture with it, that's fine if it's done properly. I generally try not to. I handle as little fish as possible. And we practice very quick landing, light leaders. If the fish breaks, flies are cheap, bud. Like, that fish is priceless. So if we lose a fly, if you break a fly off, and, you know, if I'm telling you, okay, man, it's time to get that fish in, like, you know, I generally, as a rule of thumb, in good water conditions, good water levels, maximum is like a pound a minute. So, like, if you got a 5-pound grill on, and, you know, he just done, you know, 3-4 nice jumps and a nice tail walk and zipped down through the pool, got, you know, down to the tail of the pool, and you brought him back and stuff. With a 9-foot 8-weight rod, dude, you should be able to land that fish, like, within, you know, 4 to 5 minutes. I've done it a lot in my lifetime. So, like, a 15-pound, you know, fresh Atlantic salmon on the Eagle River, I've watched hundreds and hundreds of 15-pound salmon on the Eagle River over the course of years of guiding up there get landed, and by very good anglers, and it doesn't take 15 minutes to land that fish. Like, I very seldom ever see. You do get that one cranky one, you will, and you'll get one that seins down, and he'll give you everything that he's got right to the bitter end. But as a rule, get that fish in, get it released. Don't use a glove.
Absolutely.
That's a huge debate here on the East Coast. There's just enough science out there to say, don't use the glove. Simple as that. In this day and age, since everybody wants to listen to science, let's listen to a little bit on that kind of stuff too. So don't use the glove. If you can't tail, like, I've tailed a lot of fish. I've been guiding a long time, so I've been very fortunate to have some of these beautiful fish in my hands a number of times. So I'm pretty good at tailing them. But if you're not good at tailing fish, get yourself a good dit net. Have a landing net there. There's usually you and your buddy or something like that. Don't beach fish. No, that's the biggest. No, yeah. Dude, I've seen it a lot over the years. I haven't seen it very much in the last few recent years, but it wasn't because of any reason. It was just the culture. Most people didn't know any different. If you put it back and it swam away, it was good, right? Yeah. Like my grandfather, like, used to have fish flopping around in the bottom of his aluminum boat. When I was a kid, I can remember, like, you know, 18-pound, 20-pound Atlantic salmon. Well, we got to get the hook out. Okay, I'll hold him, Granddad. You pull the hook out, right?
Yeah. Well, we've come a long way from there. Oh my! We've come a long way. 100%. You know what I mean? And that's fine. That was the culture back then. That was the education back then. There was also minimal threat to where we are now as well to that fish. And, you know, those are the actions that led us to where we are now as well. So, you know what I mean?
And I think we've come milestones in that aspect. So it's great to see all the fisheries kind of, respecting the fish a little more and realizing that resource is volatile, and tomorrow's not guaranteed ever.
No.
With anything, and especially with these Atlantic salmon. I mean, there's not to touch back on the depletion of them over the course of time. I mean, everybody knows it's no big secret, but nobody really knows why. All we know is there's not as many fish leaving the rivers, and there's certainly not very many coming back to what should be.
Yeah.
The problem, there's definitely a problem in the rivers, whether it be acid rain or silt buildup in the spawning beds or just droughts. When I was a kid, I can remember we never had dry spells like we do now. And that's got to have an impact on people. Say, well, the salmon didn't come in this year. Well, no, they didn't come in this year, but what about the 3 generations of par that are living in the river that, now all of a sudden, they got less oxygen, so they're dying of, that reason. But
exactly.
Predation alone. I mean, if they got less places to hide, a brook trout will eat anything. I'm telling you, brook trout will eat anything.
Huh.
I've watched them eat mice off the top of the water, like live mice. I've had trout that, unfortunately, during the fight, we did have a casualty one time when I was up in Labrador at a camp. And the policy is, if a fish happens to be bleeding, you can bring that fish back. It has to be eaten at the camp. Nobody takes any fish out. So that fish, it wasn't one of my clients that caught it, but they brought it back and they cleaned it in the field. But they had to I could still see the guide coming back. He had a sandwich bag. And he goes, "Look at this, Dave." He pulled out a sandwich bag and it was jam-packed. I mean, this was like a 5-pound brookie, right?
Yeah.
And the sandwich bag was full. I said, "What is it?" He said, "It's 7 mice, dude. It's 7 mice."
In a brookie.
I said, "What?" In a brookie, yep. He said, "It's 7 of them."
That's crazy.
I said, "Oh my God." I said, he was hungry.
Wow.
So, so you put all these brook trout, and I'm not talking about 5-pound brookies now. I'm even talking about 12-inch brookies or 8-inch brookies.
Mm-hmm.
And you put all their food source in a small, narrow spot in that smaller water column, your predation goes up. So the salmon counts are definitely declining worldwide. But we're still holding our own, especially Newfoundland, Labrador, and certainly some of the rivers in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. So everything's going pretty strong here. Still as good as can be expected, but it's definitely a struggle. The salmon's been struggling for, they've been talking about the decline of salmon 30 years ago when I started this. So.
Well, hey, let's shift focus to the guiding now. Obviously with the world shutting down and Canada's ridiculously tight regulations and whatnot, your guiding business is obviously taking a hit as well. So tell us about your guiding business. Tell us about, like the rivers that you guide and what guests can kind of expect when you're guiding in better days. Let's leave it at that.
Yeah, well, my guiding business, 100% Americans for 2020. So, unfortunately, my guiding business was zero for 2020. My expenses were still there, but I had no clients coming in, so I had no income coming in. So, reverted to other things, and on the East Coast here, we're tough, we're strong, just like most Canadians are. And certainly you guys on the West Coast, although you guys don't ever really have to endure hard winters, you should have to come out to Newfoundland sometime and try that out. But,
I'm okay.
But yeah, so guiding last year was kind of, the brakes got put onto that. I was lucky. I was actually in Cuba when all this stuff hit. I was down there for a month last year and having some great fishing. And I was actually on the last plane that came out of Keokoko, so it was the plane that come for me was empty.
Wow.
Or came for my group was empty, and there's, to my knowledge, there's been none fly back since. So I came home to no business, no guiding. So that was a bit tough. But moving forward, we're hoping that some things open up and we get some travel back in, and people can start doing the things that they're passionate about. And but yeah, my program I operate is on the west coast of Newfoundland, a little place called Bay St. George. In Bay St. George, there's 9 rivers that flow into it, but I predominantly target 5. And like I said earlier, it's all public water, so no trouble to fish wherever you want, as long as if you're a non-resident, you do have to have a guide. That's also non-resident Canadian, so anybody that's a non-resident to the province, there is a guide requirement there. So, but yeah, the program I offer is 5-day fish, 6 nights. We have beautiful accommodations, it's big lodge with a nice fireplace and all that stuff. And but back to the fishery, which is what we all really want to talk about. So there's 5 rivers, countless number of pools. The unique thing about all 5 of those rivers is they're all pretty much in the same time frame for the most part, same season. But it's funny because one river, like being Southwest Brook, that's almost the first river of all of them to get Atlantic salmon. And then a week later, Robinsons will get their run. And then, so it's kind of like they're staggered. So you go to this one, you get a run, and then all of a sudden you got a lull in between runs on that river. Well, then you just hop to another river and you just go look and they're all 5 minutes apart. So when we leave the lodge is on one particular river, which is all spring fed, called Harry's River, crystal clear, gin clear water, spring fed, so it stays cold a lot longer into the season, and a beautiful river to fish. Most people generally like to revisit that one during their week, because like I said, we got 5 rivers, and you're there 5 days. So technically, Greg, you could fish a different river every day and not see the same river, let alone the same pool. So there's lots going on in terms of venues to wet a line in. But yeah, the Atlantic salmon, for the most part, on the west coast of Newfoundland, we do have some bigger fish. They're predominantly coming in 1st of June. The season opens June 1st, and there's already big fish in the river when the season opens generally. Normally higher water. I usually don't start my program till the 2nd week of June, because what I like to do is go over usually that first week, get ready, get set up, and get a feel for where the fish are and what's going on and what the conditions are like in all the rivers. And then when my clients show up, I'm ready. I already know what the deal is, and my guides are all in place, and everybody knows what's going on. As soon as they get there, the guesswork's taken out. So I like being prepared for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, of course.
And my clients, so they show up on they show up on Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, and then we fish Monday to Friday. And basically, it's generally an 8-hour day. What I like to do is look at the weather the day before, make our game plan the afternoon before the next day. So we can plan, okay, tomorrow's going to be, a bluebird sunny day. So we got to be there early morning, early night. We're going to take the middle of the day off, and when it's bright and sunny and the salmon are sleeping, we should be sleeping if you're tired, or we can go into town, or, we can go, I can go show you some of the culture, some of what's going on. Maybe we could have the local seafood market, pick up some fresh scallops or lobster or something like that. Clients love that. It's great. Or maybe it's going to be cloudy tomorrow and maybe a little bit of rain or whatever. So midday won't be that bad because it's not sunny. So tonight, if you want to have a night that, everybody stays up, has a social, we're sitting there, time flies and telling stories and stuff like that. Well, if it's going to be a little bit of a late night, we know tonight's the night to do it, because tomorrow we don't have to get up early to be on the river because the weather conditions don't warrant us to have to be. So I like tailoring it that way. I've always been in a lot of camps that, it's very regiment. This is this, is this, is this.
Yeah.
And when you're on the same river every day, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing, that's very good to be organized, and some people like that structure. But a lot of my clients have really liked the tailoring aspect of it, because they know that I want them on the river when I would be on the river. Like I try to explain to people, if you're sitting at the lodge and you want to go fishing, and you're sitting there because, you're thinking you're on a fishing trip and you should be fishing. Well, I've seen it time and time and time again. People come up, and you'll get the guys that are just hardcore. They will fish from daylight till dark. 100%. There's guys like that. I'm not one of those guys. Like even Cuba, I can't fish 2 days in a row. I find it's just too hot, just drains me out on that day that I'm fishing. And I like alternating my days. Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing with the salmon fishing. I get guys that, 6 o'clock, okay, or 5 o'clock in the evening, okay, let's go out. I'll say, okay, let's go get suited up. So we'll go and we'll get all our gear on. I think the best time to be there is the last 5 minutes. 100% every time, with absolutely almost any fishery. Your best time is pretty much the last 5 minutes of daylight. So what I've seen happen is you go out at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. The fish are generally, in the runs or whatever, and they're waiting for darker shadows on the water, so they'll come out and they'll move into the pools or whatever. But the salmon don't like bright, and they will lay down when it's bright, and they'll be there, but they're most times in a high pressure situation, they're hard to catch. So you need any advantage that you can. And I'll see guys at 8 o'clock or 8:30 or something. The mosquitoes are just getting bad. They've been on the river for 3 hours, and the mosquitoes are starting to get bad. And now all of a sudden, all right, hey, let's go back to the camp and have a drink. I'm like, Bruce or Bob or Bill, it's the best time to be here. They're like, I fished enough. Well, we should have stayed back and had a nicer supper.
Yeah.
And then came out later. And then when you get there, you're fighting through the flies, and okay, you're not as perturbed because you just got there and you're keen to catch salmon. And now all of a sudden they start jumping and they're flipping around and they're rolling, and you start hooking one or two because you're there at the prime time.
Oh, yeah.
So over the course of time, my repeat clients have adopted my way of thinking of doing that. So they really like that, and they find that come Thursday, they're not tired out and beat out because, they fished too hard on Monday and Tuesday, and they didn't, let's go out at the key times. Let's get it done. Let's seal the deal. Let's get the photos or the video and, make those memories. And to me, you're better off to do that when you're on your game and not tired out. So let's rejuvenate. Let's recharge them batteries. Your cell phone don't last all day if you're on it all day, right? So you gotta plug that in at some point, rejuvenate, or eventually, you're going to get wore down over the course of the week. So that's been the avenue I've taken with my program, and for the most part, my clients have adopted that really well, and they really appreciate it, and we end up having some really good quality time getting to know everybody in camp. Generally, most of my clients are hosted trips, so it's always, for the most part, the same guys coming back, but it'll also be a group of people that somewhat know each other or have a connection with somebody else in the group. So that makes it pretty easy as well.
That's awesome. That's definitely awesome, Dave. So, It sounds like you've worked hard in building that up and building that business up as well. So, speaking of building things up, I know when we were talking off air, you kind of told me about and for those, some of the listeners might have seen your newest venture, but I want to talk about your newest venture that you're kind of doing, that, passion project, if you will, that you just started doing, and we were talking a lot about it. So tell us what's going on there.
Well, I've always thanks for touching on it too. I really appreciate the plug that this is that you just gave me there. But I started building this website actually last year, pre-COVID, and it all started off just to be sort of like my my guiding, what I'm doing for striped bass and Atlantic salmon and couple of other adventures, and I was like, okay, so I got my website and doing bookings and all that stuff on there. So then I got thinking about blogs, and I like writing, I like telling stories, I got a few to tell, so I kind of got thinking, okay, I'm going to write blogs. So I started writing a couple blog articles, and a couple people told me, they're pretty good, but of course, new website, I wasn't getting any followings or anything like that, whatever I shared on Facebook or social media. So anyway, I contacted a friend of mine, Oliver White, who's a big celebrity guide in the U.S., owns a Baco Lodge, and just recently took over the South Fork. But anyways, I had messaged him and asked him if I could do an article on his lodge in Abaco that got trampled by Hurricane Dorian in 2019. He said, yeah, sure. He said, but why don't we do like a video interview? He said, that'd be cooler. And I was like, yeah, man. I said, that'd be really cool. I said, let me kind of figure out what I got to do it. And so I did one with Oliver, and I showed it after I edited it and stuff like that. I showed it to a few people, and I said, what do you think before I put it out there? They're all like, for your first one, man, I think you kind of like knocked it out of the park. I was like, well, are you just being nice, or like, are you serious? Because like, I'm looking at it thinking, well, I edited it, so I should be happy with it. If I finalize the edit, here I am showing to you, I should be happy with it. So my opinion at this point kind of don't really matter. Be brutally honest with me. And a couple of these people looked at it. And so anyway, I published it on my YouTube channel. And from there, it's kind of snowballed, man. I kind of got thinking like, that was kind of neat. If people like this. And so I call it the Guide Shack Chronicles. And in a nutshell, it's just exactly what it seems like. Picture a couple guys sitting around the guide shack at the end of the day, talking about how their day went, how the week's going, how the fishing's been, where you going next, where have you been in the past, that kind of stuff. And just kick it back and you're just sitting in the guide shack talking about fishing and hunting. Can't get no more simpler than that.
No, but the concept's awesome because it's what what a lot of people want to listen to and hear, and that is like guides, just shooting the crap, right? Talking about, their clients or their biggest, big fish or success stories or failures or, oh my God, you should have seen. It's kind of cool. People are intrigued by that, myself as well, right? I'm definitely intrigued. And as long as you're getting quality guides on there, you're always going to be successful with that because people want to learn. People want to know, shortcuts or tips or tricks or, what they're hitting on that week or, anything that you can possibly provide that's valuable information. I think it's great. So I know we wish you a ton of luck with that. I know you're going to do well with that, Dave, because it's a great concept. Listeners, definitely check it out. So Guide Shack Chronicles for sure. Where do you want to go with that? Let's go with that as a question. Where do you want to go with that? I know you just started it as a passion project. Where do you want to go with that in, say, a couple of years or 1 year even?
Well, again, going back to why I started the whole website to begin with was to just, add credibility to my guiding business. But I also wanted to once I started the blog thing, I was like, okay, I want to give something back in terms of either knowledge or just give something for people to do in these strange times when you can't get out and go do these things. Nobody's getting on a plane and flying to Cuba to go fishing. So I have stories to tell. And I mean, I don't want to sit there and write that out on social media because, I mean, let's face it, nobody really going to sit there and read a 10-minute article or a 5-minute article on a Facebook post.
Well, that depends. Are you wearing a bikini?
Let's not get on to that subject, brother. That's a whole other rabbit hole that we could go down.
If you're wearing a bikini holding a fish with a tailing glove, they will be on that picture for you. Guarantee it, buddy.
I want to know how you've seen that picture because it was never supposed to get circulated.
Oh, the internet has copies everywhere. That's funny.
But yeah, back to your question. I started this whole website to draw traffic to my guiding business because I mean that's A, it's my business, and B, it's my severe passion, and I feel over the course of time I've developed skills and knowledge and some stories that, and as a guide, that's really all your core fundamentals. So if you've got something to offer to people, they're going to want to come fishing with you. So now I got this website and I want to offer stuff to people, such as I started to touch there on the stories of Cuba, give people something to read while they can't travel. So I guess I don't really know exactly where I want to go with the Guide Shack Chronicles. I know that the concept in my head is very cool. I remember seeing a TV show a few years ago that came out, and the very first pilot episode was about the guide life. Mm-hmm. This is it, and it was hunting, and it was basically how the guides went into the camp, and this is how we start our year. This is, it's not all glorious. Like I'm going in over the tundra for 4 days with this Argo to get it into where it's got to go. And I was like, wow, finally. And the name of the show, I was like, okay, this is cool. This is awesome. This is the one. I'm going to watch this. Finally, I found a show that I'm going to watch and I'm going to be passionate about. Every episode I've seen after that was some glorious place somewhere like that, I'm probably never ever going to see or have the desire to go see. And it totally went mainstream and kind of took the soul out of it. You know what I mean?
So big money got involved.
Well, big money was involved right from the get-go.
Yeah.
But it was, it just happened to be like this first pilot episode was epic, man. It was like my life. I was like, okay, this is it. And then it kind of never materialized into what I thought it was going to. So I guess kind of like with Guide Shack Chronicles, what I want to do is, kind of give a place where people can go and it's, that laid back place. Like I want people to be able to sit down and watch this on their computer or their phone or on their television, cast it from their phone or whatever, sit down and drink a beer as if we were all sitting in the Guide Shack together. And I think that's what I want to portray. And I want people to feel that when they're watching it. And although it's only over Skype or virtual or whatever, but, for the time being, I guess that's kind of the world we're living in until things change. But I foresee it going to another level, possibly in terms of more in-person, more cinematic, I guess you want to say. I could see it being something like that. Probably would be the better way to go. So I think that's the avenue I think I'll go with it if it's something that, is going to be something that I do. But again, the biggest reason I started this was just to draw people to my business. But now with this, it's opening up a whole new thing where I can now give back to the community instead of, so to speak, taking from it.
Yeah,
so if I can take this, Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, I have knowledge to offer myself, but I have a tremendous base of people I know who also can offer that knowledge. But to take somebody from, you know, like Jeff Liskey or Mike Schultz or somebody like that, and to take them from where they're at all the way up here to do a seminar in front of 25 people, well, that's a pretty hard thing to justify. But now that everybody, like, we're all, like, I've got online seminar programs. I got one that I've completed already. I haven't done any of them yet, but these are ones that I've been working on since last year, adding PowerPoint presentations. And this is all something that the guys that are real serious in the game, that are passionate about it, we're finding a way to reach out to the community in these difficult times. And I think it's a change that is good in terms of there's going to be a lot more people able to benefit from people that they never would A, know, or B, ever get to meet, to learn the stuff that they learn. And now to be able to teach some of those skills virtually, I think is a great way to put back into the community. And it's a great way for the community to engage with other people. Like, I'm in a very small niche here in Atlantic, Canada. For the most part, you know, everybody sort of knows everybody. Not everybody fishes together. We don't have fishing clubs here. I don't know of one real fishing club. There's a couple of fly tying clubs that get together, but we don't have a fishing club. Everybody just does their own things. They got their buddies that they fish with and stuff like that. And that's cool. But being on the side of traveling down and being in the mix with some of these, what I consider like steelhead junkies, like these guys, like, you know, these guys, although steelhead is a trout, not a salmon, these guys are junkies and they're into it as much as you can get in, like, full foot, and they're doing these things. They're doing the seminars, they're doing the spay claves, and, you know, it's a network of people. And I think for me, being where I'm at, the way for me to contribute to that network, or to work back and forth with that network, is virtually. And there's not a lot of people doing anything virtually that I know of with the Atlantic salmon side of things. So I think that I got something to offer to people abroad, outside here, right? So
yeah, for sure.
I don't think pre-COVID this mind frame ever would have developed in order to do this. But given I haven't been guided for the last year, I'm now a self-taught professional computer programmer.
Wow.
Website developer, videographer, and I finished the internet twice already. So yeah, I've been busy.
There you are. I love it, Dave. I love it. I love the positive. I love the positive vibes. I love how you want to get back, of course, and where you're going with it. So, you know what, Dave? With that said, I'm gonna ask you, like, I'm gonna give you the final word here, man. I mean, it seems like we've covered everything. You got so much going on, and I do want to point listeners definitely to the direction of your Guide Chat Chronicles plus your guiding, and point out that, you know, if they have any Atlantic salmon questions or anything like that, like, you are their man, so they can definitely reach out to you and whatnot. But where can they reach out?
I'll talk fishing with anybody all day, man. Like, I love talk fishing. So if I have time to actually take it and talk,
yeah,
I will 100% take it and talk. I will message you back on, you know, if you send me an email or send me a messenger message.
Yeah, like, where can they send you? Like, where can they send you an email? Where can they find your website? Where can they find your Instagram? All that sort of stuff.
Well, Instagram, I keep it all pretty simple, man. I met a marketing guy a few years back that I was guiding. He said, Dave, promote your name. He said, your name's never going to change. So he said, promote your name. So keep it simple, stupid.
That's your
David Hartlin. David Hartlin Guiding. So it's Hartlin is my last name. David Hartlin Guiding, and that's Instagram.com/. Facebook. Keep it simple, right? And
I love
and
it.
all my contacts. If you go to my website, davidhartlinguiding.com,
It's all on there.
it's all on there.
Perfect.
All that, yeah.
I'm definitely going to make sure I throw all those deets within the show notes. So listeners, if they have any questions, want to book a trip, want to get in touch with you, because I know you're doing lots. Maybe there's some guides out there that might feel that they want to come on your show because they offer some value as well. All that sort of stuff. I definitely wanted to point that out. And Dave, man, it's been awesome talking to you, but I got to give you the last word. What's your last word really quickly?
Last word, man, when you coming out to fish Atlantic salmon, because you told me that you haven't hooked one on a fly rod. And I'm not one to judge or anything like that, but I just want to say you haven't hooked one yet.
I know.
We're just
I'll take. You know what? I'll take it. I'll take it. You know, I definitely want to. I want to get out there for sure. So if you can make that happen, I'm there. Let's see what we can do. Maybe one of our lodge programs can materialize, and we can get something out there as well on that, and do a little co-work on a lodge program together or something. Who knows? So if you're a lodge and you're in that area, you reach out to Dave, reach out to myself, and let's see if we can make it happen. So, Dave, always a pleasure. I learned so much. Atlantic salmon. I feel like I've been talking for 2 hours now.
We have, I think.
We have. I know we have. So
just add 28 minutes to the show time. There you go. There's our
there you are. So, all right, Dave. I want to thank you, audience. I want to thank you guys as well. So, all right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Greg. Have a great day, and thanks everybody for listening. Keep listening to the Insider Podcast because, if you want to know anything about fly fishing, this is the place to come because, that's what they do.
You've been listening to the Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, tell us by liking this episode and subscribing to the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Fly Fishing Insider Podcast. See you next week.